Okay. Okay, here are the minutes that we need to pass. So I want to, I'll scroll down here so you all can see. Okay. And then I would need a motion to pass these minutes. So from member Penn.
Okay, this is Jamie again. I'll motion to pass the minutes.
Thank you.
I'll second. This is Jody.
Thank you. And so the minutes are passed. Appreciate that, everybody. So what I have next on our agenda is Jody, if you wouldn't mind just giving us an update of where we are with fundraising planning.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you to all of the King Arts community who has so generously made one-time gifts and recurring monthly gifts. It is great to see that every time the communication goes out in our King Family Memo, we have a little bit of activity each time. And again, that speaks to the work that the PTA and the parents and caregivers across our community are doing to build this community and stay connected to the school and really provide some of those resources that our students, scholars, and families are needing during this time. Since we have gotten back in the building, we're feeling this awesome momentum, and we want to capitalize on that we're feeling even more physically connected. And so our plan is to do a March appeal, like a direct appeal email that really celebrates the things that have happened thus far, and also connect people to the work that we're still doing and asking for people to pour those resources into our community, right? We feel proximate and close to the work of our school, but also know that lifts up the one fund across the district, which then cycles back into our school as well. So we're going to do a direct appeal. We're also looking at some of our events, right? Just as we're going to hear more about our March Madness event, do a call out to, as people are feeling connected, like make a gift to King Arts. And then we're looking at a community night on April 17th, and then an all school, like peer-to-peer, some sort of celebration community builder on May 7th. So save the date, April 17th. I didn't see anyone move. Get out your pens, May 7th. Put those in your calendars now. So we'll hear more about that, but that is where we're gonna see like some buzz and activity. And as always, there's more the merrier. No one has to plan. No one has to do a direct ask, but we do need people to participate to lift on kind of like rolling out some of these tactical activities. So you can find me at jody.wickersheimer@gmail.com. Otherwise, we'll include my information in the minutes, as well as I'm going to give Matthew like an updated deck so we can hear more details, but I want to get us back on time, and that's the fundraising update for March.
Thank you, Jody. Appreciate it. So the next thing on our agenda is just a call out. We have, transitions that happen every few years in terms of leadership with our PTA. And so one piece of this is about really creating kind of a nominations committee. It's a part of our bylaws to do this. And so the idea is that we have 2 executive team members who are a part of this committee. And then we would also ask for 3 members of our PTA to join in that nominations committee. So this is a call out for volunteers for the nominations committee. The executive team members who are leading this are Kristen White and Jeff Parker. So Kristen and Jeff, do Do one of you want to receive emails if people are interested? Like, should we point them to your email address, or should we do the King Arts one? What do you want to do?
I'm fine if people want to email me directly or Kristen as well. But yeah, no, that works.
Okay, so maybe we'll put the email in the chat, Jeff, so that folks have it. And I'm sure we'll be sending out information about this too for a call for some volunteers. This is a great way to participate in helping with the transition for leadership and all of the different roles. So thank you for that in advance. And so the next piece here that we have is talking about our March Madness. It's talking about our bylaws. That's what we need to do next. So what we have essentially is that, every few years we do take a look at our bylaws. Thanks, Jeff, for adding that. And in looking at our bylaws, we examine them. We want to see if there's anything there we want to adjust or shift, over time. Sometimes that is an important thing to do. So we've kind of created some of our executive team to take a look at the ones we have now, and we would like to update some language to the bylaws. And I would say it's essentially about just adding some more diversity, equity, and inclusion language into the bylaws, and simplifying a few things. So nothing really very dramatic, but just adding and enhancing to what we have. And so what we will do is we will share them, we'll send them out in an email, and everyone, all of the members of the PTA have a chance to take a look at them, make sure that these proposals, make sense. If anyone has any questions, of course they can ask, and we will answer those questions. And then at our next meeting in April, what we will do is pass those proposed bylaws. So that is the plan. Just wanted to let you all know that's coming. And we will be sending those out probably today or tomorrow. So you have kind of a 30-day window to take a look. And that is what we wanted to talk about there. And so I think then the next piece really is about talking about the March Madness event, which is coming up very soon. So Matthew, Jeff, and Jason, who wants to talk about this?
Start real quick, and then maybe if Jason wants to say something, that would be great. I put the link in the chat to the event info. We're going to have an event. Jason can say a little bit more about it. He's been doing all the awesome organizing of it. It started as a way to celebrate a holiday in March, and I mistakenly made the joke that we should celebrate March Madness, and everyone took it seriously. So we are doing it, and I am so mad for March, y'all, because I grew up in Urbana, Illinois, and I didn't go to University of Illinois, but University of Illinois men's basketball, I mean, they're going to win the national championship, and it's kind of amazing. So they are lovely people, and it's like, if it happens, I will be so happy. Anyway, so yeah, so but we are going to try to make something more than just a bunch of like people geeking out over this. So we'll be doing this on Saturday. Jason can say more in a sec. And then last thing I want to say is we will be trying to celebrate both the men's and women's brackets, sending out a bracket to parents and stuff through our email. And so look forward to that. And tomorrow we'll know more about it because the women's brackets for the NCAA tournament are coming out tonight. And Illinois women's basketball is not quite there yet, but hopefully soon. Anyways, but DePaul local teams is often really good. So anyways, Jason, you want to say more about the event?
Yeah, definitely. We're all very excited for this event to take place. It's the first time we've ever done something like this at King Arts. I think it's with the theme of we're definitely trying something new this year with everything we're doing through this COVID-19 academic year. So we're very excited to have a few guest speakers, especially some former college basketball players and just some former athletes in general, to just talk about the experience of sports and how sports affected their lives in a positive manner. And hopefully we can have a little fun. you know, we're gonna make this as fun as possible, maybe play a couple of games, and, you know, we won't take too much of our time Saturday morning, because I know the games are gonna start Saturday afternoon, so, but I think it'd be a great way for us to get together and just, you know, enjoy sports and our King Arts community, and to see one another once again, and hopefully see each other on a very positive vibe, and which sports usually connects all of us through a positive way. So let's continue that that vibe, and let's all have a great week.
Thank you so much, Jason. So that will be Saturday at 11 a.m. Virtual, and we're thinking about an hour. Is that right? Yeah. And kids, yeah, everybody is welcome.
Yes.
So those kids can come. It should be fun. And thank you. We're excited and appreciate the planning that you all are doing for that. So next we have the Capital Planning Committee update. So Shane, feel free to take it away here.
All right, I'm going to try to share my screen.
Wonderful.
Let's see. Is that working?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
Mhm.
So I'm just going to do a quick update of the capital projects that have occurred over the past year, and what the future may hopefully entail. And yeah, so they have worked on 3 projects that are of significant note over the past year. They did a carpet replacement on the 2nd floor of the school last summer. They worked on rodent control that's kind of started last winter and into fall, and then I believe they did a little bit in the summer of last year. And they also did a partial roof replacement over the summer. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the life safety analysis that was performed in 2017. Life safety analysis is it's an assessment that's prepared by an architecture firm as hired by District 65, and it has to be renewed every 10 years. And this is something that the state of Illinois requires of the district. So here's an image of the 2nd floor for those of you that haven't been in the school since they've replaced this carpet. I think it looks great. They have lightened up the color, which has brightened up the hallway quite a bit. And this is a part of an asbestos abatement program that they are doing for the entire school. This is just one of those phases. There is a plan for replacing the carpet on the 1st floor, but the specific dates have not been identified for that. They had planned on doing that this summer, I believe, but the pandemic kind of threw a lot of things into turmoil as far as their budgets go. And again, I don't know when they're going to be performing that work. For the rodent control, they set out a lot of traps. They prepared a lot of traps. They caught some mice. They installed some additional screens on a lot of the openings to the exterior of the building. Those openings already should have screens, but over time they get damaged. And if there's strong desire by rodents to get through, sometimes they can get through in spite of the screens, so you have to replace them occasionally. So anyhow, they've installed some new ones. There was also some door sweeps. So the space that's underneath an exterior door needed to be replaced. There was just a little, doesn't take very much space, and a mouse can get through. So I just also wanted to mention, because of the pandemic, the building wasn't used as heavily, so we'll probably have to keep an eye on this as to whether or not these mitigation endeavors has been successful. So yeah. And I know that the district is going to keep an eye on this, and we will try to help them. Yeah. So the roof project is, again, this is a big project in the life safety analysis that was done in 2017. The roof was identified as needing replacement. And because of the cost, they broke that into 5 different phases. And I've provided a little aerial bird's eye view of the school. And you can kind of see that there's this building, it doesn't have just one roof. It's broken up into several different sections. And so they used that in order to identify the areas that they were going to replace. So last summer, the area that's over the art classes, the area that's over the music room and cafeteria and a mechanical room, and an area that is over the connection between the kindergartners and first graders and the rest of the building. That corridor has a new roof. They had previously intended to replace the green on this in 2021 summer, so this summer, but again, because of the budget issues, they have pulled that project for the moment, at least, and it's probably not going to occur. That being said, there are, still 4 more phases that need to be performed, and hopefully we can get back on track on that. So a little bit more, never mind. I was about ready to bore you with information about what kind of roofs these were, but you probably don't really care as long as it keeps the water out. So I will move on.
Thank you, Shane.
My apologies. So anyhow, the district has indicated that they intend to do some spring cleaning at the school, some landscape work, and also work in the courtyard, which is kind of a constant desire of ours to get that looking as nice as possible. So that's something that we can look forward to this spring. So as far as the capital planning, the life safety assessment is kind of a real key tool that the district uses for planning their capital expenditures. And the last one that was performed was 2017. The next one will be in 10 years. So that's 2027, which is not 10 years from now, 10 years from then. I guess we're actually getting pretty close, aren't we? So that's in 6 more years. Anyhow, there was an asbestos abatement, which involved the carpet. That was a part of that. And there was also some other portions that they performed the summer before this past summer. So 2019, they did some work on asbestos abatement. The biggest item that was on the life safety assessment was the roof replacement. That was a $2 million line item. That's the estimate from the architects. There's also a pretty big project for replacing the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. The cabinet unit ventilators that are in the classrooms believe that they have hit the end of their life. So that's another big project. There are some exterior wall repairs. This is just kind of minor cracks, but we like to get ahead of those cracks. This is not structural issues. These are water infiltration type of issues that we like to stay ahead of. They also had an item in there for exterior pavement and the lighting replacement and ceiling system, which both kind of added together. Now I mentioned, I'd like to mention that the lighting system and the ceiling system, these are energy conservation implications, which can be really handy. I'll definitely be keeping an eye on that. If there's anything that comes through from the government as far as a part of their stimulus package for the pandemic, this might be a great opportunity. And also ComEd does rebates as well. And so we'll probably try to talk with District 65 about trying to get that taken care of. Which these are things that we might be able to kind of help with the district because they're kind of annoying applications that I've filled out before. So yeah. And then there's a big item in our courtyard where we have a little bit of a drainage issue. When it rains heavily, the courtyard floods. It looks to me that it's pretty clear that this is because the drainage that's exiting from the courtyard is not sufficiently sized. It needs to be bigger. And so, yeah. Now that is not something that's in the life safety assessment. So that makes that a little bit more difficult, but it is causing issues, and there might be a connection to some other issues with some smells that are coming in the auditorium area. There might be a connection, but we had to figure that out. And yeah, so that's that. And just wanted to, reiterate some of the things. We're going to have to continue to advocate for this building. It's a great asset for the community, and because we use it so much, it's really hard to get it scheduled to have work. The district doesn't like to have it down. We don't like to have it down. And yeah, so that's always a constant issue. And it's also important to remember that if we spend money now for certain things, they can save money later. So that's kind of my update.
Thank you, Shane. Does
Certainly.
anyone have any questions about this or any of the other PTA related updates?
I don't know how to stop. Here it is. Nope.
I have a thing at the top that says stop sharing.
Not
Yeah,
share.
I think you got it. Excellent.
Sorry.
Any questions or thoughts or feedback? Shane, thank you so much. Thank you, Capital Planning Committee, for all of the work you're doing and the detailed and persistent advocacy. I'm extremely grateful for that. So thank you.
Certainly. And I'm speaking for Jamie and Jody as well. Certainly.
Yeah. Excellent. So I don't know if we have, so I would say, at this time, what I would love to do is have Dr. Henderson and AP Callaway share their state of the school. I know we have talked about having this, conversation. And then I wasn't sure if you all wanted, I know we've had Matthew kind of do anonymous questions. If that's helpful again, I'm sure we can do that as well, if you would like.
That sounds good. Thank you. And I think just for clarity and consistency, if we could just kind of hold those questions towards the end. So I don't want you to feel like you can't ask Matthew directly the question, because if you lose it, then, we wait to the end, it's gone. So if you could share them with Matthew, and then what we'll do is towards the end, it says hit me up via DM. That's exactly what you'll do. Hit Matthew up via DM, and then we'll have some time towards the end to answer those questions. All right, I am going to share my screen here, and in about a few moments, I'm going to share the talking space. I'm trying to get a kid who is taking advantage of mom being on a meeting, ready for bed. So I do apologize if you do see me off camera a couple of times. I want to make sure she gets where she needs to be. All right, so in full transparency, I shared at the beginning of the year that we wanted to have these moments where we do kind of like our middle of the year data or transparency or state of the school. And so this is our state of the school presentation. It gives a little bit about our current context. Of course, we always want to ground our conversations in who we are as King Arts. We talk a little bit about our data review and our observations as an admin team, also keeping in mind that much of this thinking and brainstorming has been done at the district level as well as the school level. And so we have taken time to really analyze our data and to begin to action plan some next steps. And then we will present what we believe are short and long-term next steps as we prepare to wrap up a school year that is already 2/3 behind us. We will blink and the school year will be over, and then we'll honor some time for questions and answers. Just keeping in mind that our mission and vision, so our mission of King Arts is to provide all students with a dynamic educational experience that focuses on the fine and performing arts and emphasizes literature and writing. We're working this year and going forward and making sure that all of our decisions, academic, financial, are aligned with our mission and vision for the school, so that we are embodying the mission and vision, and it doesn't just live on presentations like this. All right. In conjunction with our stakeholder groups, so our families, our students, and our teachers, this year we drafted our vision statement, which reads, inspired by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., every King Arts student will become a lifelong learner who is an empathetic member of society, committed to social justice, and connected to the world and others through the arts. So again, continuing to weave in that our arts, continuing to weave in the development of the whole child as well. All right, so if you recall, we shared at the beginning of the year our SMART goals, and there are 3 of them. This year, we committed to effective use of data. I think I shared transparently that our data culture was in need of improving. So being able to honor that the data exists and use it to effectively plan out next steps. And so by the end of this school year, King Arts will improve student outcomes on MAP and other content assessments, increasing goal attainment by 10%. For high quality communication and collaboration, keeping in mind that our beginning of the year conversations suggested that communication was not strong at King Arts and that we needed to improve this in many facets. So with our families, as well as within internally at King Arts. And so by the end of school year 21, King Arts will improve in collaborative practices, as well as effective leadership from least to more organized. And that language comes directly from our 5 essential survey, which here's an early plug. We need more families to fill out. And then finally, our last goal is our MTSS goal, which means multi-tiers of supports for students. By the end of trimester 2, King Arts will develop and implement a clear MTSS process, and 100% of the staff can articulate the process and use the correct intervention strategies at each tier. And this has been an ongoing work, not just at King Arts. MTSS has been ongoing work district-wide. And I think our wonderings is what is it that teachers need to really get MTSS off the ground? And we'll talk a little bit about what we're doing at King Arts in relationship to the goals. All right, AP Calloway, ready?
All right, let's do it. So just to set some context around what our school situation currently is, last year we were assigned a designation of commendable. And so these are the calculations that go into assigning that rating. Here's a breakdown of our student demographics for this school year. We'll give you just about 30 seconds to look over this. The number on the left is the number of actual students, and the number on the right is the percentage of the student body they make up. Here is our student demographics data based on free and or reduced lunch versus full price lunch. So almost at that sort of even split, just about. Oh, just want back one, Dr. Henderson, if you could, please. All right, here is our student demographic data for our students with IEPs. So you can see that about 15% of our student population, or about 76 students, are identified as students with IEPs. And here's a breakdown of our students with IEPs, their demographics by race. So you can see that how those compare across the board.
And it's
I
giving-
apologize. Go ahead.
No. You have baby stuff going on.
Is that what you can hear?
Yeah, that's
The
okay.
Princess and the Frog, and it is keeping peace in my house right now. So I'm sorry for that.
The reason why we share our demographic information is to provide a full picture of what King Arts, who King Arts is, and who our students are. Because I think sometimes when we see the data, and if we're unable to put a complete picture around the students we are supporting, then some things can be lost in translation. But I think outside of this student demographic, there are just some things that we have to share that sometimes we don't see in the data. And so I would like to share some of the anecdotal stories from our teachers. These stories shared with our district admin as we also did our data conversations. And so the first one reads, 2 remote students in 2nd grade have made huge growth in reading and math, as demonstrated by their math test and reading levels. Student A started the year at a reading level of 4 and is currently at an instructional 18. And I know sometimes the numbers and language and lingo behind education can be confusing, but just understand that this is almost 2 years of growth for this student. Student J was a level 2 and is reading at an independent level 12. This is a year's growth in less than half a year's time. Both made huge growth on maps and math. The teacher, who is a diverse learner teacher, I was able to accomplish this with the 2nd grade teachers by doubling up on math small group instruction and through putting them in small groups where that teacher is teaching the Wilson reading system, which is one of our identified targeted supports for MTSS and struggling readers. Primary teacher, I have had countless family emails praising all of our efforts. Daily students tell me, both in person and remote, how much they love school. A new admin has accepted the role with grace and kindness and compassion, warm demanders, and up for the challenges that being part of King Arts brings with it. We are one of 2 KA schools in the district and need to juggle a lot of different things through PD curriculum guidance and running many PLCs. I was unsure anyone would be able to rise to this challenge during a pandemic, but now I brag about how our admin has got it. Our teachers seem happy and excited to be back and energized remotely to support. That was from a primary teacher. There's a student video, but I will want to kind of move past this because I want to triple check that I have permission to share it in this space, but it was of course shared with our district leadership. One of our 3rd grade students shared their science experiment, which was absolutely amazing. A service provider, a 3rd grade student who previously had great difficulty with engagement during remote learning is now attending Hybrid Plus. That means that they attend from 8 to 10:50 in their classroom setting, and then they go to a Hybrid Plus classroom where they receive support from one of our external partners. Not only was she prompt to our session with her camera and audio on, but she was actively participating in a session. She was repeating a new concept we were working on, synonyms. I pointed out that by repeating this word, she was using one of our memory strategies for learning that we learned a while ago. She was using the emoji reactions when she heard this, stunned and excited. She said she felt like a strong student when I helped her realize she can learn. One of my 7th grade students has truly blossomed this school year. I cannot wait to reveal his growth. During this school year, he has grown immensely. In the remote setting, he has grown in all academic areas. He is participating in whole group instruction, turn taking, sharing his well-rounded knowledge of science and history. His MAP scores have soared as well. I have attached them for reference. I can't share those with you. This month, he was nominated for the African American Award for 7th grade. Last year, the student struggled with getting his basic needs met. Mother lost her job, food was sparse, and the family was eventually kicked out of their household. He fell apart in school. He struggles to function academically and socially. He was impulsive and frustrated. He started the year remotely. It allowed him to observe and then engage in learning. Online learning allowed him to realize that many teachers and educators wanted to see him, chat with him, and hear from him. He began to notice how much he was loved and cared for from our community. And then finally, just a thank you for the many countless emails of support and encouragement from many of our families, many of you even on the line, because I don't think that sometimes the data can share some of the work that is really truly happening behind the scenes, and having an opportunity to engage and hear about some of these stories. Remote learning is actually working for some of our students where we would not have had the option had the pandemic not happened. There is success in our MAP testing. I know a lot of families experience discomfort in thinking that we would engage students in this type of testing, but just to hear that some students are thriving and making gains is important to share, especially as we move into the full picture of our data that we will present to you. So wanted to highlight those. All right, so let's talk about our NWEA MAP data overview. Remember, that is our district-wide assessment that we use to plan, think through interventions, and also provide the necessary supports.
And so just the general way we've sort of broken down this data is, how does it connect to each one of our goals? What are our noticings and observations based on this data? And then at the end of the data share, we have sort of some short and long-term plans based on that. And at that time, we'll of course welcome any input you have as well. So to start with our NWEA math data, we have some district and school comparisons. And you can see that the fall to winter, so if you're looking at the chart on the left, is our math. It's designated by the M at the top left-hand corner of that chart, M% of students at or above grade level. So you can see that in the fall, 60% of our students were at grade level, and in winter, 57% were at grade level. You can also see in the gray is what the district comparison is. So you'll see a common trend that happens from fall to winter is the dip. We'll notice that throughout the rest of our data as well, but we're sort of on par with the way the district has played out as well. For reading, you'll notice that our percent of students at or above grade level started at 66 and is at 65 for winter. Again, not as big as a dip as the rest of the district took, but a dip nonetheless. Thanks. Oh,
sorry, my mouse gets a little wild sometimes, so I do.
You're fine. Yeah, you're fine. We can go to the next slide. This is students making expected gains. So you'll notice that there's a more severe dip in the math portion of things from fall to winter, both at the district and school level. And so you'll see that at the beginning of the year, we had 63% of the students making their expected gains, which means they're meeting the goal set by NWEA. So they're attaining the RIT based on a comparison of other students who are at their same level, what their growth is. So making that goal. So if I'm in like 200 points, all other students in the country who are at 200 averagely make an 8-point growth. Am I meeting that 8-point growth? That's sort of where that percentage comes from. And that's for reading. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So at reading, we were at 54 in the fall, 55 in the fall, and 54 in the winter. So on par with district, and with less of a dip than the rest of the district saw. And so here are some just general observations and notes that we've made thus far. We've made these brief and sort of chewable for our time together here, but the notes that Dr. Henderson and I have are probably much longer and sloppier than this. So across the board, 3rd and 8th grade did increase for students performing at or above grade level from fall to winter. And there was a correlation of students that saw a decrease in the number of students at grade level and the number of students disengaged at each grade level. So each grade level has a number of students that they've created disengagement plans for. These are students who at the remote, who are remote, designated for the remote learning pathway, and are either struggling to log into class, or not consistently logging into class, or not completing the assignments remotely. So there is a direct correlation between that grade level's performance and of course the number of students who are identified as disengaged. We also noticed that some of the data around our 5th grade team could have been impacted by the fact that the same week that testing occurred was when the 5th grade teacher transitioned out. So during the week of testing, of course, naturally we had transitioning a sub in and who didn't know the students, who, you know, so that was definitely something that could have impacted our data. We also saw that our Black student population did increase in their at or above grade level performance across the board in math, while our Latinx students did not increase. So sort of this dichotomy. And then in our reading observations and notes.
Wait, before we go to reading, I would also like to add that our teachers are also implementing a curriculum that is new. It is definitely designed for adequate rigor for students. And so I think that even the cognitive demand of this new curriculum adds another layer to potentially why we may not see greater success in our map. And then also keeping in mind, teaching a new curriculum for the first time, teachers are being reflective, trying to understand what their needs are learning wise to ensure that they're providing the material in the most, the best way possible. So I wanted to add that for math.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it's fair also to identify that across the board, the district has seen that dip as a result of having a new curriculum. Everyone is seeing sort of the same trends. And so in our reading observations and notes, when we drilled down into some of the data, we noticed that our overall performance and patterns are generally consistent with the district and national norms. We did see an increase in the number of students performing at or above grade level in both 4th and 8th grade. So it's pretty consistent across the board that our 8th grade is growing in the number of students at attainment or who are at grade level and those who are attaining their goals. The district and the school saw a decrease in the number of students performing at grade level and meeting expected gains, which again is typical for the winter or mid-year assessments. Our percentage of Black and multiracial students at or above grade level and making expected gains decreased in literacy from fall to winter, while our Latino students saw an increase. So sort of this interesting reverse role, flip-flop from math to literacy, what that looks like. And then we noticed some trends within primary grades around the need for support with phonemic awareness in that K2 grade band. So developing the staff and the staff capacity around phonics and teaching phonics.
So our next set of data actually comes from the Panoramic data. It's a student survey that is given, and interesting enough, we actually had a PD today on Panoramic data. So I feel like we're even more well-versed to talk deeply about some of the insight that we received from that professional development. Students received this survey while remote. Some of the questions were designed without the remote setting in mind, but I want to bring that because I think that that is some of the pieces that we were able to observe as we analyze the data. And so the following topics are covered in the survey: how well students feel like there is strong diversity and inclusion, teacher-student relationships, which they get to tell us about that 2 times here on the Panoramic survey, as well as 5 essentials. Cultural awareness and action, their overall well-being and SEL, sense of belonging and engagement. And I'll give you a moment to review those numbers there as we prepare to kind of talk through some of the thoughts that we have for this. And if you see here in the right-hand side, it tells you how we fare against other schools who report in this category. So for an 84%, we find ourselves at the top of the percentile in compared to other schools. Okay, and then just keeping an eye on our 2 lower performing places, sense of belonging and engagement, and also keeping that context in mind, students were remote. Give you a breakdown by grade level. So the students who take this survey are students 5th through 8th. Okay. And then being able to see kind of where our grade levels scored mostly. And so sense of well-being sitting at kind of like an even percent for 8th grade, whereas -11 for both engagement and sense of belonging. Seeing that some of our 6th grade students feel differently. They feel a little bit stronger about their cultural awareness, their sense of engagement and sense of belonging. And so having this grade level data helps us chat with grade level teachers to talk about what are our students' needs collectively at a grade level and what supports can we provide those students.
And so, of course, the minus or plus is in direct correlation with whatever the all respondents in the gray number is. So what that grade level reported.
And then finally, this is our breakdown by race. Again, keeping our mission and vision and focus on equity at the forefront, being able to see that our Black and African American students looking at across the well-being and SEL and diversity and inclusion as areas that we will probably want to make sure that we target. Also looking at teacher-student relationships there. Similarly, looking at our Hispanic and Latinx population for cultural awareness and action. And then also looking deeper into engagement. For our white students, looking specifically at engagement and a sense of belonging. And then for the piece that says confidentiality protected, if I remember correctly, those are for students who did not report racial identity. So I think that there was an ability to not report. All right, so some considerations that we want to kind of bring forward about the panoramic data. There is some grade level correlation between student performance on assessments and the Panorama response survey, not necessarily consistent throughout. For example, while 8th grade students report a comparatively lower sense of belonging or that they feel less connected to their teachers, more of them are performing at grade level than fall. And while 5th and 6th grade students report comparatively higher levels of engagement and sense of belonging, fewer are performing at grade level than fall. How much of the 8th graders' disengagement is a direct result of student concern regarding the cell phone policy, lack of planned 8th grade activities, etc.? That's something that we're keeping in mind. They are the seniors of our building, and this 8th grade year has been severely impacted by the pandemic. And if you know anything about being an 8th grade student, you look forward to the end of the year and the celebratory opportunities that right now seem very up in the air for them. So we're wondering if some of that also has impacted their responses. We also notice that we have a large neutral population. So there's this, it doesn't say neutral, but it's the meh category. So you're not strongly opposed and you're not strongly in favor. And I discussed with AP Callaway, it's kind of like age appropriate for the meh, I don't have an idea either way, but how do we target that neutral group who responded on some of the survey questions so that we can push them more into the favorable experience? Like, what do they need and what are the opportunities to hear their student voice so that we can move more in the favorable responses? And then also, how can we leverage practices that are successful in some grades and apply them to others? For example, we know that 6th grade has advisory, which I enjoyed that opportunity for students to receive that check-in support. I feel like advisory is one of those spaces where you can voice what your needs are, have an opportunity to work one-on-one with your teacher if you need it. So all 3 teachers have one section of advisory at the 6th grade level. We also see that students, 6th grade students are reporting comparatively more favorable in regards to their engagement, sense of belonging, and teacher-student relationships. And we're wondering if that advisory, which also hones in some SEL instruction, some direct SEL instruction, could be the reason why our 6th grade students feel a lot more positive about school.
Great. And so I think our last piece of data that we want to talk about is MTSS and just some updates around that. So what we've pulled is directly from a system called Branching Minds. This system pulls the data that you're seeing here is directly connected to NWEA assessment and or behavioral reports. We're going to share with you literacy and math. And so you can see that the tier 1 is the green. That's where we want students to be. That means they are able to access grade level instruction. So at the beginning of the year in the fall, we had 350 students, or approximately 76% of our student body was able to access tier 1 instruction. Tier 2, then we had 72 students, and tier 3, we had 35 students. After the winter assessment, you can see we went from 464 to 466, so 2 additional students took the test, and that left us with 338 tier 1, 67 tier 2, and 47 tier 3. So there's a little bit of movement there. And so that is something that we are working on with our teachers, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in one of the upcoming slides.
I can interject. We explained what tier 1 was, but I want to make sure that families have an idea that tier 2 is a set of supports and interventions. Sometimes they happen in the classroom space, or sometimes they may happen individually with the student outside of the classroom space. And so once a student is identified as needing tier 2 supports, it is either working with that classroom teacher to provide them with the supports they need. It can look like small group instruction. It can also look like personalized learning within the classroom. And then tier 3 are our students who need the most intensive supports. Usually this is in a kind of like a pull-out one-on-one setting, or sometimes it is assigning a application or a different, I don't know, Wilson Reading is one of our tier 3 supports where a student gets that one-on-one language instruction. So I just wanted to make sure we had an understanding about what these tiers mean.
Thank you. Yeah. And so you can see the same for math. You'll notice a larger discrepancy in the total number of students, and that's because in the fall, our primary students don't take the math assessment. So they take it in winter, but they don't take it in fall, which is why we've added 33 students to our total number. And I believe that's just for second graders. So you can see our numbers for tier 1 were 348. In the winter, we went to 358. So an increase in the number of students who are able to access tier 1 instruction, which is great. Our tier 2 students went from 42 to 53. And our tier 3 went from 37 to 43. In terms of some of the observations and notes, just general considerations around MTSS, we noticed that the increased data and the number of students, we talked about that, that has to do with the primary students taking NWEA in winter. Teachers have started developing strategic tiered interventions for students, targeting all students without IEPs who fall below the 25th percentile. That's those tier 2 students we're talking about. We are developing a clear outline of resources for what tier 2 supports look like in the classroom. And there is an increased use of Branching Minds platform overall to develop and input and monitor those plans. The MTSS team has been formed and does meet regularly as of the second trimester. But I think, Dr. Henderson, feel free to cut me off if I'm wrong. I think the goal that we had was lofty and ambitious, and we're finding that we're still in sort of the infancy stages of really getting that all rolling and making sure everyone has a clear understanding of what the different tiers are. So I think that's where we stand with that goal right now.
Absolutely, I would agree, absolutely. So we have some proposals and some next steps, and also keeping in mind that some of our proposals and next steps are actually already in place. And so as I think about what our short-term proposals and next steps, our MTSS team is focused on student engagement. And so we do have a number of students who are still remote. In fact, I had it pulled up here at the beginning for we have 186 students who are in person, and we have 487 students in all. So we still have a great amount of our students who are learning, if not at home, also in some of our neighboring centers. And so keeping in mind that we still have some issues of student disengagement. We've tried to combat some of those issues with our morning raffle through our morning announcements, which are so much fun and so exciting. So that proposal is actually hitting multiple goals. So we're addressing student engagement. We're also building school-wide community building, collective efficacy. And so our students get to see one another. They also get to learn about teachers and staff at the building who they have no idea who they are because we're behind masks and some people are new. It builds community. And so that morning raffle has already started. Our use of our instructional coach to provide some additional phonics intervention. So in addition to, we have 3 reading specialists, a reading interventionist. We've also been using our instructional coach to provide in areas where our reading interventionists cannot. They have caseloads and our need is greater than our caseload. And so why not use that additional help and support in the building to provide? Also, our use of our instructional coach to guide specific grade level teams. As we transparently reported, our 5th grade team is very, very new, with one of our 5th grade teachers still out. And so that coach has been able to kind of fill in that gap to build and develop that team and keep them moving. There is some teacher training and implementation of tier 2 interventions. And so working on the documentation part of things, right? So MTSS is not a system that works if we do not put pen to the paper, right? I can set goals for students all day, but if I haven't put them on paper and formalized the plan and communicated how I will monitor the plan to make sure the kids meet the goals, then we're not doing the work. And so it's that culture building around doing the work. Step training for K through 3, that is coming. Being able to ensure that our K through 3 teachers are trained on the STEP assessment, which provides some additional supports for that grade band. Teacher intervention plans for students in the first quartile. We've already discussed that, specifically targeting students without IEPs. The purpose for that is because students with IEPs already have very clear goals outlined in their IEP. So we don't want to do the double work and miss out on students who don't have IEPs, who don't have those clear goals. And then thinking through these 8th grade celebration activities, keeping in mind that we're at the mercy of the pandemic and then at the mercy of the district as well. And so waiting for that guidance and the opportunity to share what we can possibly do. So those are our short-term pieces, but we do have some long-term goal. I think it's very public information that our reading specialists and interventionists are going through kind of a restructuring, and we are preparing for the impact that will have on our building, but trying to be mindful that because those supports in that way will go away in that role, that we still need to provide the supports for our students. And so what could that potentially look like? We already talked about that step assessment training and implementation for K through 3. Providing some differentiated professional development for teachers. We're actually working to try to get some of that started in the summer. So I know we talked about what is happening in the summer. Will there be any capital planning projects? Will there be summer learning? We have a lot of ideas about what we would like to do this summer. And one of them is to provide a space for teachers to learn because it's difficult to do some of that on the job learning and teach and grade and do everything else at the same time. So some of that learning will be around whole group instruction. This is what all of these acronyms mean. Small group instruction, because that is where you can really get the bang for your buck for interventions targeted at specific groups of students. We want to work on developing a school-wide action plan for SEL, including scheduling for SEL. Both AP Callaway and I come from school backgrounds where SEL was deeply embedded in the class schedule for the day. So there were very explicit opportunities to align activities with the SEL standards. So we want to revisit that because we want our students to feel like they are safe emotionally and physically at the school. We're still in that MTSS team forming, but forming the school-wide supports. And so increasing our capacity for assigning and aligning the right interventions. And then finally outlining our 8th grade activities and celebration at the onset of school year 22. So I always love to do the passport. It is like your passport to moving about the next step of your life. And so how do you get the stamps along the year showing that you are ready for this transition? And so we may not call it the passport because that was, my context, but finding out what it is that 8th graders need to accomplish and do before the end of the school year so they can feel confident in May of 2022. So those are our proposals and next steps. We could talk a little bit about what we need from families. Family and community engagement is a strong lever in our success. We can't do this without you all at all, ever. And so we also outline some short and long-term considerations for our families. One is increasing our attendance at our monthly family meetings. We know that the Zoom fatigue is real. I actually printed out an article that I plan to read very soon about Zoom fatigue, but I know that our jobs are demanding, our time is demanding, but we want to make sure we continue to honor that space to bring families together so they can continue to learn about the things that are happening at King Arts. So our next one is 32421. 5 essential survey completion. You probably had an opportunity to read in our memo, our families are sitting at 8%. And in order to get the family voice counted, I think our threshold is 15%. I got to double check, but I know that we're not there for our families. We've met our threshold for students and for staff, but we gotta do like a blast. And so I don't know if we can March Madness that one too. I don't know, but we need a drive. We need a bracket or something for 5 essential survey completion, but that is our short term. We will really use that 5 essentials to do some forward planning around how effective our leadership is, how collaborative teachers are, whether or not our students feel supported. And so please take some time to fill that survey out. Finally, our long-term processes, we are accepted into the most recent cohort of the Magnet School of America process. And so we have a window for submitting our portfolio. I mean, if we were all ready to go, we could submit tomorrow, but we also have an extension based on the pandemic. And so we're looking at submission of our MSA portfolio towards the end of school year 22, so in the spring. This will allow an opportunity to really study what those standards are, understand what the portfolio is asking us for, and then engage our family and community partners in that process, because it is a tenet or a standard in MSA that talks about family and community engagement. So we cannot be a fine arts magnet school without the family and community engagement. And then finally, how do we align resources for families as it pertains to school-wide goals? And so, of course, we have our school resources, but keep it in mind that we want to continue to link families with their needs. And so if families experience needing and tutoring or mentoring, how do we make sure that there are wraparound services that just don't come from the school? So thinking about how we serve to partner with one another and how we can network to meet those needs. How do we increase student engagement and a sense of belongingness, as you saw some of our needs from our Panoramic data. So here's our opportunity. I love to see faces, so I'm gonna stop sharing. There we go, stop sharing my screen and then be able to hear. Thank you. Parent threshold is 20%, currently at 8, so we need some more families.
We can definitely send reminders. I had a question, Dr. Henderson, AP Callaway. I was curious with the panoramic data or panorama data, is that something we're doing kind of at King Arts? Is that every school in District 65 is doing? I was just curious about who's collecting this information.
Yeah.
District 65.
Excellent. Okay.
And one follow-up from the questions related to that is, was the survey administered last year? We know.
In 2020, yes, correct.
I mean, I guess, is there multi-year data, and is there any kind of like trend data?
We don't have a comparative analysis available to us. What we could do is take out, like I think when we onboarded, we were given paper copies of the panorama data from last year. So we could take that out and do sort of that comparative analysis. But this is why we sort of use the 5 essentials to guide our goals and be that benchmark, because you can see the 5 essentials year over year, and that's all stored online that we have access to.
Thanks. I'm just going through the questions that people sent me. Another one was about demographic groups that are driving the low sense of belonging and engagement, but I think that you covered that in the slide with that must have come in before you shared that. So 2 questions, then one more pragmatic. Can we get a copy of the slides that you just showed? Is that
Absolutely.
so we can put it with the website copy of this meeting? Thank you. And the last question that came into me was, are there any lessons to be learned or gained from the 3rd and 8th grade teaching teams related to math?
Yeah, I think that there are. I think that a couple of things that team is doing. Well, one is our 8th grade math teacher is a former instructional coach. So I think that expertise is really helpful. Having someone, this isn't his first year with the curriculum. He's actually coached people on the curriculum in previous years. So I think that having that level of knowledge, expertise has definitely helped, and that shows. And I think within our 3rd grade groups, there is a lot of small group support that's happening between and amongst the teachers, where they're taking, the remote kids in the afternoon or seeing multiple small group sessions. So there's definitely things that we can take away and learn from those teams and try to use in other areas.
And I think we even discussed tapping in Mr. Rooney as our 8th grade teacher as a possible resource for in-house professional learning, because, why we have an expert in the building, why not use that expert?
Can I ask a question? I'm sorry. Or do you still have questions, Matthew? You're going through your list.
No, there's no other questions that came in through the chat. Thank you.
Okay. So you also mentioned over the summer that there is going to be potentially PD training for teachers. I was also wondering, is there anything planned for summer school for students, especially when we think about those bands, right? I know that there are a group of teachers, gosh, it must have been 2 years now, that really advocated for summer school and came in and did that. And so what efforts are being made in that area, and how can parents support that?
So the advocacy is still there. In fact, one of those teachers I met with today, and she said, well, we should have an idea in 2 weeks. But I do know that district leadership has already shared with us our request for proposals to see what community partners we can partner with in the event that we don't have enough educators who are willing to work that summer. And so they have a very comprehensive plan. It's just waiting to get the green light. And so I know that has been considered, as well as ESY, which is extended school year for our specialized population. And so, they all can't live in the King Arts building at once, but we have to kind of get the timing of when these programs will happen, and then make sense of how they're going to communicate when and how students should. I don't know if it's an application process. I don't know how this works, but I'm sure information will come. Yeah.
Yeah, so I can speak a little bit to that, Dr. Henderson. So extended school years for our students with IEPs who would show regression typically over the summer if they're not in school during the summer. So that's already in place. That will continue. This year, the district is also pushing for what's called Summer Learning Plus. This is for students who have shown regression in the remote learning space, but we are still unclear on a few details. For example, will it be accessible to remote students, or is it strictly in person? Our current understanding is that it is strictly in person, and that specific priority level students who have shown regression will be given seats. So each school will have a certain number of priority level seats to offer. Students in those seats will have to meet specific criteria around, like, have they not met their benchmark? Have they not been engaging this year? You know, like, with support, did they show any improvement? So there's a series of sort of like check marks, if you will, that the student has to hit all of these in order to fulfill a seat in the Summer Learning Plus program. And I do think, and like Dr. Henderson suggested, also looking to community partners we can provide to get students involved throughout the summer. So as soon as we get the green light to share the dates and details of those programs, that's what we're doing.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question, Jamie. I'm so sorry. Did you have a question? I just thought I saw her hop onto the screen. I was curious if we had a sense of if our staff and teacher population is vaccinated, if, you know, like kind of where we are and maybe across the district. I know originally there was a little bit of partnership with one of the hospitals, you know, so I'm just curious if that, where we kind of are with that. I'd love to have a sense of it in our school in general, if you all know, or when we think that might be able to happen for everybody, if it hasn't already.
Sunday, March 21st is the district has partnered with Walgreens. They sent out communication just today that all District 65 employees, Walgreens is facilitating like a large scale vaccination clinic this weekend, and any District 65 employee is eligible to participate. So that's one thing that we know. We also know that I can't speak to the like actual quantitative numbers of staff in the building who have been vaccinated, just because I don't know, but I feel like every time I'm around someone, they're like, oh, I'm getting the second shot today, or I'm getting the first shot today. Like, I feel like it's just a consistent going on, but I don't know how that looks for our remote staff.
Are there any other questions? Does anyone have any questions?
So I have one more question. This is Jamie. So I'm wondering, I mean, I know we did the mid-year update, right? Is there a potential to do another one, I guess, and I'm not quite sure how that happens with the spring results, because as we mentioned, I think this is historical. We've seen it with previous years of data, that winter scores typically dip for a variety of reasons. And I could only imagine that they are exacerbated, right, with the pandemic, and then just constant kind of shift and change, right, going from remote for some of our in-person kids and those that are not going in person. So is there an opportunity to, like, let's revisit these scores in the spring and kind of see, you know, are we getting closer, especially with the short-term plans that you guys have in place, see if we see some growth there?
Yeah, I think we're doing an exit kind of review of where we are. And I think it makes sense to honor that space. And so we want to look, even if the school year has ended, if you all continue to have general PTA meetings that are in June or May or June, we can also do it then. So
the window for the NWEA, I believe, is towards the end of April and through sort of the beginning of May. So realistically, the soonest we would have that data is probably the end of May. And then the 5 essentials, really that window closes in April. So we'll have a couple of those pieces of data ready sooner rather than later, but it'll just be about compiling it, having some time to disaggregate and review it, and then present it. But I do think something in early June or late May is doable.
Okay, great. Am I the only one that others like to see kind of an update, like where we're at? Okay, we got a couple. All right.
And if you have any, I'm sorry, I was just going to say, and if you have any input in terms of like the data that you're seeing, if you want to see different data, if there's, you know, like if there's any feedback along those lines, we'd be happy to take that into consideration as well when we're creating the next presentation.
Anything else, PTA members?
It seems like when we are able to start coming back together as a community, we just got to go crazy with engagement, right? Like we just got to go I mean, everyone's so cool. I don't think it'll be a problem. We just got to like get everyone else to recognize that about each other. Hopefully, you know, make people feel a sense of community and connection with each other.
Yeah, depending on what the new school year looks like, it would be great. I know in 2019, 20, I don't even know. But back when my daughter was a kindergartner, the back to school event was something that she really enjoyed doing. So, you know, depending on where we are in August, that would be a great way to just really introduce everyone back into the community, into the building, as like an official start. Because even those that, you know, are engaged, we're going to have to re-engage in a new way again.
It's never changing. It's ever changing. Yes, indeed.
Excellent. Well, I really appreciate you all joining us tonight. Thank you so much, Dr. Henderson and AP Callaway, for your work and what you're doing and your leadership and transparency. It's just so wonderful to have the partnership, and we're so grateful for you. And thank you, parents, for all that you are doing as well. We're just really proud of our community and what we're doing so far here, and I think we still have lots to work on, but we're moving along. So I wanted to end this meeting and just thank you all very much again for being here. We appreciate you. I hope you have a safe rest of your evening and some sleep to catch up on the time that we have sprung forward. So enjoy your evening. Thank you so much, everybody.
Well.